All right, folks, welcome back to another episode of Not Funny Guys Presents News Radio Rewatch. We are on episode 11, In Through the Outdoor, and the song remains the same. And before I do this, just please remember, like, subscribe, share, comment, more of that to come later on. But let's first hear from a word from our sponsor. There is no sponsors. We're not advertising, and we don't make any money from this, or at least I don't. I don't know about the other guys. Maybe there's something they're not telling me, but let's move on. In Through the Outdoor. This was written by Leslie Cheveney, Alan J. Higgins, Drake Sather, Joe Furry, Josh Lieb, and Paul Simmons, and directed by Patrick Maloney. This was aired on the 4th of February, 1996. So, summary. Joe tries to teach Matthew about gambling, which is hilarious. Dave has to also give a speech introducing Bill at a dinner. Now, this is interesting because this is the beginning with this episode. It's a continuation throughout season 2, where each episode is titled after a Led Zeppelin album. Apparently, Steve Susskind returns also as Milos the janitor in this episode. So this is a running theme. So all the next episodes, if you ever wonder where the names came from, they're Led Zeppelins. But let's continue here. So, we open Mr. James coming to talk to Joe and Bill, and they're talking about gambling, and Matthew is desperately trying to fit in or join in. He's not good at it. He's not even being noticed. Mr. James even says he has a system, bet on any team that Ted Turner owns. It's what he does. Lovely. I think this is back in the day when he used to own the Atlanta Braves, too. Catherine even gets on it, but everyone continues to ignore Matthew, and this is not a cold open. In fact, I don't think we have any cold opens in these first couple seasons, but if we do, we'll talk about them. But we run straight into the episode after the credits, where Matthew is trying to join in by asking advice from Joe. Joe calls him out for not knowing any of the lingo, wants to fit in, but he can't, wants Joe to teach him how to gamble. So Joe proceeds to actually do that. And this will be our storyline B. Matthew wants to gamble. Joe tries to refuse, but eventually just gives in. Matthew's whole motivation is just to be included, and he begs. And so Joe relents and guesses the number between 1 and 10, or 1 and 5, for $10, 100-to-1 odds. He loses. He guesses 3, it was 4. But this is the continuity. Now, we do have the long-running sort of storyline C, sometimes storyline D, throughout the season about Mr. James searching for a wife. He's down to 23 from 36. Apparently, he was interested in Melissa Etheridge, the musician. Dave has to inform them that he's a lesbian, so now he's down to 22. And unfortunately, he also has to... Dave says she's right up there with Katie Lang. Also another 90s musician, popular back then, also lesbian, so now he's down to 21. Yeah, so storyline A is going to be Mr. James and asks Dave to introduce Bill at the speech for the Broadcasting Society that night. Dave agrees, but doesn't realize that there's a speech involved. Mr. James claims he's unavailable. Bev comes in after listening and wants Dave to bring her leftovers, offers to give a bag. Later, can't find a bag and offers to use a condom. Matthew continues to lose his betting, and this is an ongoing thing throughout the episode. Dave now has to prepare a speech. He's kind of nervous. As I said, Matthew continues his losing streak. He even tries to bet on a match where Joe talks about Muhammad Ali versus Joe Foreman. This was like 1974. Ali won. Matthew doesn't know this, and he still loses. He does not win. Dave is in his office preparing a speech. Bill comes in. He's kind of a pro at this. In fact, he's even taught a course, and he offers to help Dave. Dave relents and takes Bill's advice. Bill is obviously very afraid that Dave will do a poor job. And apparently, rule number 1 is speak up. We don't get any more rules. But like I said, Matthew can't even guess a random song on the radio. Sorry to cut in here, but this is the way the episode. We move back and forth, A, B, really quick. Can't even get this song right. Bill's trying to keep Dave focused on the speech, real taskmaster, rhythm of the speech and all, and they make a reference to the old TV show and movie Fame. You might also think of that movie Whiplash with J.K. Simmons is another good example. He keeps beating an umbrella against the table over and over again. Dave says he's had enough. Bill taunts him for being a quitter. Lisa finally appears in the episode talking to Dave as he's working on the speech. Dave is still nervous. Lisa reveals to Matthew that he's now quite in debt to Joe because he's been doing double or nothing on these $10 props. So in his mind, he thinks he's lost 9 or 10 bets that he owes like $90 to $100. He doesn't understand that he actually owes Joe $5,120. Yes, and so he's practicing throwing paper balls into a trash can, and he thinks he's outsmarted Joe with this thing. But Joe does accept the bet, but he bets Matthew can do it, because he knew he was practicing. Dave tells Lisa, and they all start throwing, and Dave is sitting there talking with Bill, and the balls are all flying into the trash can next to him, and then he looks up and he catches Lisa. He tells the seller to set a better example. And this will become kind of her pet project. Meanwhile, Beth and Catherine put up a little mock speech prep for him. They've invited Milos to join them, so Milos is back. They end up sort of testing his patience, and Milos laughs at Dave when he says the word duty. If you're a child, you'll find that funny too. Lisa's outside now. Like I said, she's forced to handle the Joe and Matthew situation. Matthew now owes Joe $10,240, and Joe won't let it go. He's got to learn about gambling. Lisa asks Joe to take a dive to help Matthew while referencing, and he does the voice for Marlon Brando as an impersonation for the movie On the Waterfront. Dave's speech practice has gone very poorly with his audience, but Milos thinks Dave is running for president, and he has his vote. Joe meets Matthew, what hand is the pencil in? He's literally holding the pencil in one of his hands, very plainly, easy to see. Matthew overthinks it and picks the wrong hand. Lisa's gives up. Bill is now running Dave to the prep one last time as they're all dressed up. He's really yelling, and he ends up blowing out his voice, and Dave thinks this is all stupid. We then cut to Dave giving a glowing introduction to him, the crowd is loving it. Bill gets up. He's lost his voice. He can't now speak up. Rule number 1, speak up. Someone yells that at him. Dave looks very amused. Finally, Mr. James is consoling Matthew at the end of the episode, talks about his own bad gambling streak back in the 70s. But then Matthew reveals that he lost the pencil bet, and Mr. James just gives him a weird look. Fun episode. The storylines in this one work really well together. And of course, we have that background. Sometimes he gets pushed to storyline D, as we will see here. But let's move on to our next episode. Now we have The Song Remains the Same, written by Sam Johnson, Chris Marcel, Joe Furey, and Lewis Morton, directed by Tom Sharones. This one aired on the 18th of February, 1996. Beth discovers that she supposedly might have a secret admirer who just quit the office. Mr. James is playing massive April Fool jokes on the whole office, even though it's February. And one of these results in Catherine getting drenched in water, and Matthew is getting green slimed. Meanwhile, a reporter from the Wall Street Journal has shown up to interview Bill. Also, as I was saying, this is another Led Zeppelin album. So we start at the conference room table, talking about the election coverage. Since this is 1996, we're gearing up for that election, where eventually would be Bob Dole versus Bill Clinton. Everyone thinks that he's showing favoritism to Lisa, but he decides he's going to send Matthew to New Hampshire and not Lisa. Bill announces this. He announces that the Wall Street Journal reporter is coming. At one point, Bill gets distracted when Beth bursts a bubble over her face. Bill wants everyone to be on their best behavior. He wants them to be thought of as the heirs to Edward R. Murrow and not some shock jocks. Now, this is when the total stranger who we've never interacted with, some background character, shows up, announces he's leaving for a new job. Bill congratulates him. He leaves, and of course, no one actually knew who that was. Meanwhile, Lisa's now mad at Dave about the whole New Hampshire thing. Dave is trying to be impartial. Beth and Dave now talk about the guy who quit, and Beth needs to clear out his desk. Mr. James comes in, meets the Wall Street reporter. Bill introduces them, and Mr. James's first response is no comment. The reporter goes to the bathroom. Mr. James asks Catherine about the Pacific Ocean, what's it made of. She answers water, and water falls on her head. It's a brand new outfit. To ease her anger, though, he has prepared for this by putting off a new outfit in the women's bathroom for her. So she'll have her hair wet and she'll be changing later on. It's his April Fool's. He's doing it early. Matthew says it's just like that Nickelodeon show, and he can't remember the name. And he says, you don't get screamed unless you say, I don't know. He says, I don't know, and he gets slimed. Bill is put off by this. He wants the Wall Street Journal guy to take this seriously, and Mr. James refuses to back down on his pranks. Brett brings, well, we now know, Brian's stuff to Dave in the office and is reading into the desk materials as somehow a note about him having a crush on her. Dave thinks it's creepy. Beth thinks it's romantic. Apparently, he liked her favorite book, The Firm. Beth wants to call him. Dave thinks this might be a Mr. James prank. So Beth then confronts in the break room Mr. James about this being not a prank. He agrees. He's down to 20 now because apparently he finally figured out that Elizabeth Berkley from Saved by the Bell it just starred in that movie Showgirls, or what he calls a dirty movie. So he's down to 20 now, finally. Matthew tries to prank Joe with a fake can of nuts thing, the real classic one. Joe sees through it, obviously, then tricks him into opening it on himself, and the little snakes fly everywhere. Meanwhile, Dave and Lisa continue bickering about the New Hampshire. So we have storyline A about Lisa and Dave and the favoritism. We have storyline B, which might also be storyline A about Mr. James pranking. And then Bill and the Wall Street Journal reporter is our sort of storyline C. But these are all very well interlinked and crossing over. Matthew even tries to prank the Wall Street Journal reporter with the can, which Bill slaps from his hands before he can open it. Another reference to Dan Rather, by the way, this time from Bill. Beth is opining up over Brian to Joe and Catherine in the break room and talking about how they found a ticket stub, how they both went so hard to kill about Stevens. They all had a Steven Seagal phase, and Joe calls him a fraud in martial arts, which is correct. Beth, not listening to reason, reading into all kinds of things from the desk, tries to eat the old chewing gum that was in there too. It's disgusting. Lisa calls Matthew in to talk to Dave about the New Hampshire assignment. She thinks they should have an objective quiz on the events to prove who should get the assignment. As I said, 1996 primary. Matthew buzzes in, does all things by the rule, names all the GOP candidates. Matthew ends up winning and stunning Lisa, even though Catherine prepared the questions, and Lisa can't believe it. Turns out, though, that Matthew has some shut-in relatives living in New Hampshire who call him all the time. Lisa's super mad now. Dave is kind of amused, but Matthew can't go to New Hampshire. He can't leave his two cats. They might plot to kill him. I have friends who would agree with this. Beth continues to go through Brian's stuff for 5 hours now. Now the relationship has hit apparently some rough patches. She found a photo of a possible other woman. Dave tells Lisa she's getting the New Hampshire assignment. Tells her about the cats possibly plotting against Matthew. Catherine overhears and thinks that apparently Lisa maybe sexed Dave up, the favoritism thing, and Dave leans heavily into it. He's like, oh yeah, no. And Lisa's embarrassed. Bill and the Wall Street Journal reporter are talking. Bill brags about one day writing a book about all these great things, and he's making excuses and trying to look past all the pranks, and he gets called unflackable for this, even as his chair raises right in front of the Wall Street Journal guy. So the guy leaves. Mr. James comes over. He's impressed that Bill did not let any of this come to his head. He won't even allow the fact that water falls on his head. But it turns out that the Wall Street Journal reporter was a prank. It was Mr. James the prank. And he, after he concedes the loss, it's a male stripper. And he asks, and this is where he finally says, Bill swears to get revenge. And Mr. James asks him how. He says, I don't know. And he ends by getting slimed. And of course, the Beth and Brian storyline wraps up one last time when she's at his desk. He comes back for something he forgot. She kisses him, but he's not Brian. Brian's some other random guy whose desk she cleaned it out, some old guy who comes in at the end and who is quite upset by it. But this is a real fun episode. I would say of the two episodes, I think perhaps The Song Remains the Same might be my favorite. But next time, we'll be looking at Zoso and Houses of the Holly. Again, we'll be continuing the Led Zeppelin thing, I assume. But until then, like I said, like, subscribe, comment, share, all that fun stuff. Write me, notfunnyguys.offthereels@gmail.com. You can write us directly, email. We love to hear from you. We'll even make Casey check the spam folder to make sure you don't actually get dropped in there. But we want to hear, what do you like? What do you not like? All that fun stuff. Engagement is important, after all. It's getting to the point where I'm having to screen grab my own photos for these videos, by the way. There's not a lot out there, but we will make sure more of it gets out there. That is the beauty of these things that we're doing here on YouTube. So I want to hear from you guys. So let us know, like I said, all that fun stuff. And if you'd like to check out some more not funny products in the meantime, got it right here. Our main podcast, Not Funny Guys, presents Off the Reels. We are talking about the Mission Impossible franchise over there. We just put out the first one, the 1996 one, which I think is probably one of my favorite. It's actually only one of two that I've ever seen. So this will be a new experience for me eventually. Yes. So, and if that's not your cup of tea, because we do the movies over there, television over here, we also have Casey and Eric. They have their podcast, my Not Funny Guy colleagues. They have theirs, Not Funny Guys Presents Wrestling with the Horror of It All, where they talk about wrestling and horror movies. And if you listen in on the main podcast, Casey does a whole spiel about things they're covering. I'm not going to get into it all here, but I'm sure it's lovely and probably tortures the hell out of Eric. So thank goodness I don't participate in that one. But I do participate in our third podcast, which is Not Funny Guys Presents Thinking About Thinking, with our not funny gal, Dr. Kristen, where she and I talk about things. We're currently talking about memory. We've talked about AI, geography, all kinds of things. All things we're thinking about. And we hopefully, if you like a good discussion with some ideas and some thoughts that might be thought-provoking, come check that one out. However, until next time, like I said, please like, subscribe, share, and remember to keep it not funny.